Hey guys. All right.
Hello.
We're
Hello.
finally live. Welcome everyone. And thank you for all the gifteds, by the way, in advance. I can't thank anybody in the middle. So I gotta thank everybody now. All right. These are the Val devs. You guys can all introduce yourselves first and then we can get into it.
Good. Hey, how's it going? My name is Ryan. I'm on the game balance team. I'm a game designer.
Hello, I'm Tiffy. I'm a product manager working on life balance and agents with these two.
Hi, I'm Diego. I'm one of the map designers for Val.
You already know me. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you. All right. So, okay. The first thing I want to get into is how stressed you guys are about 1108. It's gotta be in the back of your mind. It's gotta be the biggest patch in ever, I think. I don't know if you guys could dispute that even, to be honest. Is there a stress level there? Do you guys feel nervous?
I think it is the biggest. I think we talked about earlier. This is the biggest patch. We touched so much agents.
Yep.
So as always, like it's definitely a little stressful. I think we talk about this a lot, but we get to test a lot of this stuff, but we don't get as many as thousands of games a week. Like when it goes to live. So there's always a little bit of like stress there, and we take our best guess on some of this stuff, and it's less stressful, but it's more like, man, I want it to be live now. I think it's so exciting of a patch that I want to see it in the wild.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any thoughts? No one stressed?
I mean, Valorant has aged me just by virtue of playing and working, but I'm not necessarily stressed with the patch. To Kusai's point, I think we're really excited for it to go out. I think it's gonna have like a long-term, like lasting impact on the game that we definitely want to keep our eyes on and monitor. So I think the sooner we get out there and kind of see how it plays and have like people feel it out, like the better it'll be for sure.
Not gonna lie, I'm a little stressed because a lot of these changes I approve of, and that's new for me. I'm not gonna lie, it's new for me. Sometimes I have some problems with some of the patches, but this one it hits. This one's hitting different. I was telling these guys right before, I want them to name it after me. This patch right here. It's
yeah,
perfect.
I was saying it definitely is a little stressful sometimes. Kind of like we love engaging with the like social media and stuff like that, and just like reading all this stuff. And I know it's like a tough one to read, and without it being able to play it, there's like a lot of thoughts that can go through. So I think that's more of the stress. Is like that's why I mentioned I wish it was live. It was like we get to really see it, get to play and like actually see what it feels like, as opposed to seeing the numbers. Because sometimes, at least for me, the numbers. If I wasn't on design, I'd be like,
for sure,
that number looks crazy. Like the percentage of that looks crazy when feeling it out and seeing it all in the environment. Like feels a lot different. But again, yeah, that's most of it.
So obviously 20 agents plus changed. Biggest patch, as you guys mentioned. In general, right now, is it safe to say this is a clean slate in terms of this is just everything is now downgraded and then it's just up from here for like all the agents?
I think it'd be a clean slate in some of the ways you mentioned. Yeah, I think like it's standardizing a lot of the numbers that might have been different. Like some of our flashes were like 3 seconds and some were 2 and some were 1.8, 1.7 and stuff. And so finding ways to standardize it will help us like have a clean state on understanding how to push power back into agents on the balance side. But for the most part, it's like not a clean slate on like the experiential level. It might be new and like being able to like strategize around the game and stuff, but it's felt still like Valorant, obviously. So
why now? Why are you guys doing this now, and how long has this been brewing for?
So I think these larger set of changes, which I think largely is like focused on like gameplay pacing, a lot of like the long-term accessibility of the game of like, hey, when someone new comes to the game, like how long do they even know their flash for? Or like, what is the concuss duration, all these things, as well as like the long-term mastery and like strategy of like, okay, later in the round, like how predictable and consistent can I plan for it? It's something the team has basically been talking about for maybe upwards of 2 years. But I think figuring out what exactly needs to change, or like the parts that we wanted to kind of like really iterate on for like maps, weapons, and like agents, basically took 2 years to kind of get here. The reason why it is like now at this point in time, it's like, hey, we feel like over the last course of this like 2025, we've made good strides towards like the general like outliers when it comes to like our agents and our maps, where it's like, hey, some of the people who are feeling particularly strong, or like Harbor, who we want to do a rework for, like we're slowly getting to them. This feels like the moment to like, hey, reestablish like that baseline, and then try to go from there to your point of like, hey, let's figure out where are the rest of the power like levers we want to do. So I think it has been a long time coming, and we recognize that it is not necessarily like the most exciting thing when so many things get changed. It is like a huge moment, but we do think it's like a great moment for you to kind of like rethink about how you actually want to approach the game, rather than just see like one change, like the before and after, like strictly like that.
Yeah,
For sure.
And if I could, real quick, I think from the map side, like we, these map changes, these were tested, like with these agent changes as well. So I think, on the map side, it's easier for us to kind of balance maps and kind of understand where to place power in maps when, we have all these standardizations. Where it's like, hey, like if we all know that near sites are pretty much going to act the same way, there's stuff we can do to like boxes and cubbies to like make it so that, hey, like you'll always see this person if you clear them, or you'll have better options to tuck now because of whatever debuff is applied to you, we know is going to be standard throughout the game. And so, at least on the map side, like if you guys are liking the map changes, for example, like I think the map changes weren't made in a vacuum. They were made in tandem with these changes that we were playing for quite a bit. And so, I think on the map side at least, like it'll help us a lot more.
Speaking of maps. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was saying, I think we were talking about this, but I remember like a couple years ago, we talked about this execute, which was the bind one, like the big infamous like
B1.
Viper wall, Harbor wall, flash. Like it was like pretty unreadable, and that's kind of like the focus on a lot of these things is like, how do we better make the counterplay easy to understand so that we can put more power into it. And I just remember that like it's been a conversation for some time, right? Because that clip is now like 2-3 years, like it's been a while. So it's a constant conversation, and it's tough for us to like really find the right changes to ship sometimes. And I think we found this set of changes that we think really push the needle in kind of how we want to see the game in the future.
Do you feel like there's going to be a lot of tweaks between now and the end of the year for some of the over-nerfed agents? For example, Gecko is one of them. I think he wasn't even rarely played. He's a victim. I swear he's a victim. I would say Fate to some degree is a victim. So are those characters going to potentially going to get tweaked?
I think like, yes, we're definitely open. I think like this first pass is kind of like, to your points, like an establishment of the baseline. There's some people that we think like may have kind of like taken more of like a hit from it. I do think it's like one of the things that we have noticed is like it definitely takes time, even internally when we're playtesting, as well as like whenever we release a new agent or a new map, or just do even like smaller balance changes, it takes like upwards of a month or two for like players to really get their feet under the ground and kind of like understand the difference and like restart optimizing and strategizing. So I think we want to get enough information to make like a good call, so it's not like just whiplashing, and we want to slowly like nudge us in the right direction. But I do think there, like internally, we have been talking about some people that we are interested in kind of like addressing beyond this patch for sure.
Understood. And then as far as maps go, because I know you mentioned this earlier to me, but I just want to chat to hear it as well.
Yeah.
You guys have, you can't say exactly what the changes are, but what's actually happening with the maps going forward?
Yeah, so for the maps going forward, like we really took a hard look at how we want to update our maps. I think Breeze, like when we had changed Breeze originally, for example, like we learned a lot from that, where we had changed the halls, like kind of opened it and closed it again, and all that jazz. We got a lot of feedback, and we learned a lot from that experience, where players and pros alike, like everyone across the board thought that it was a bit of like a whiplashy change, and so we wanted to go and think more of like, hey, like not to say that we aren't confident per se when we make changes, but we want to make sure we are not probably as reactionary as we were before, where it's like, hey, like whatever we're shipping to players, we want to make sure is we are confident in the change, and we know it is a high quality change that aligns with some goal that we want to align on. Like for Abyss and Pearl, for example, it's like a lot of the through line for those changes is like focus more on on-site play and reduce the power of some post plants, right? I don't want people to think that like, hey, like we just want to remove post plants from main entirely, where as an IGL yourself, there's times where you have to call that, right? Like we want it to be a valuable tool, a valuable path in an IGL's toolkit play post-platform main, but it shouldn't be the best and only strategy on a map, right? So I think
on any map,
yeah, on any map. And so for like Abyss and Pearl, we want it to still be viable, but we want you to also be playing on the site because we think that's where the best Valorant combat happens is like, those 5v5 retakes on site, or 3v3 retakes, whatever it may be. Like that is where the game shines and where we see a lot of these, cool clutch moments, cool highlights and all that stuff. And so we really want to push the envelope in that way, where it's like, hey, like you guys you should feel that whenever either as an attacker or a defender, whenever the spike is planted, it should hopefully mitigate the feeling of being checkmated, because, a lot of times when you're retaking Pearl B, you're like, okay, well, they all ran away and they got Astra Stars, Tejo rockets and stuff like that. And like that stuff can still happen. But now if it's mistimed in any way, or if you're able to get the jump on them sooner, they're going to have to close the gun, close out the round with their body a little bit more and with their gun. Yeah. And so again, like I think something else to keep in mind from the maps is like, again, like these changes were not made in a vacuum. These changes were made with the 11.08 changes in mind. And so if you can kind of like squint a little bit and like take an idea of like, hey, like if you like these changes on the maps, they are directly in correlation because of 11.08 and all these other changes where it's like we're trying to push the envelope a bit more in terms of like, hey, like we want these clutch moments to happen. We want all these cool highlights to happen. And like you can still get checkmated. That's still a possibility. It's still Valorant. Like there's going to be times where you get darted and Sova ulted and you just lose the round, and that's okay. We think that's fine. That's Valorant. That is part of Valorant's flavor. But
I think I do agree with you. I think a lot of it has to do, the community backlash I've seen has to do with the fact that duelists are just going to be so strong now. But in general, they were always supposed to be the stronger characters. They're the ones running in first. They're supposed to have a lot of util in general. So I don't see that as a huge deal. How do you respond to the people that say it's going to be too strong for oppers and shotguns?
Okay, I think there's a couple parts to that question. I'm gonna take one of those parts. I don't even know if it's the last or first part anymore. I think there's like some agents that are like top performers and ranked, like Reyna and Clove, that we do want to take a second look at. I don't think we're like, this is it. Like, this is where we want to be them at all. I think that is like the second thing that we're trying to look at the fallout after all these changes and to kind of assess like what types of changes and how to adjust them. So there's that. And then there's the question about like, I think the operator and the judge. Ryan, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so for operator and judge, I think like we still want the weapon diversity that we're seeing. I think for operator and judge, a lot of the tools that you had before will still be there. Again, signature utility is kind of the place where we're focusing on initiators, but we do think like the rest of the abilities are still going to be hopefully as strong to help. And if not, we have like a bunch of patches to adjust, right? I think like there's ways for us to see. Do maps become more defender sided, or is there more success? I still think there's going to be some agents that are going to be as strong as they are now. Agents like Chamber that can take a bit more of that risk, and like Yoru and Jet on the op. But I think you could be kind of like more creative about how you push them off, as opposed to like only using the signature utility.
I feel like as players get better, it's just going to be harder to push them off anyway, regardless of what kind of utility you have. If you're playing double initiator, double controller, doesn't matter. For example, if I'm looking at, and I was telling you guys this before as well, like initial map control stays very similar to what it is now. I don't think it's that different. It's usually in the mid round where oppers can sometimes sneak back up and retake lines, but you have to be able to punish that by keeping that space for as long as possible. And obviously players are getting a lot better, so I can understand why people would freak out about ranked oppers, but I don't see it being a huge problem in pro play, to be honest. I think it'll be solved pretty quickly. I think duelists will still, like, ops have always been strong. Op lines have always been strong. TP agents have always been strong. That's not going to change all of a sudden. But I also don't think it's going to get overpowered because of it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like initially we talked about it, right? It's like maybe we start to see ability usage change. So oppers and judge, like they'll take different lines that might be more aggressive because they are starting to see less utility early in staging. But then I think like that wave starts to kind of push the other way, right? It's like almost this pendulum. It's like, okay, well now the utility starts to look the same on some of the staging spaces, but now it's less on site, less for retake and things like that. So at least that's kind of like how a lot of our games have been playing out, is like it was pretty strong at first, but you start to like really dial in like how much utility you'd need. On each of the like takes. Yeah.
I think, yeah, I think, 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 I think,
I guess something real quick to
yeah.
keep in mind. I think we also like didn't change anything about like Sova Drone, Skydog, Fade Prowlers. Like those are all still tools you have to clear neutral space. As a maps designer, we try to make our neutral space not feel too complex, where it's like, hey, like one piece of utility can usually reliably clear at least 90% of like a main or hallway or space. And so I think, not to say that people are undervaluing prowlers or drones or whatnot, but at least in the rank sense, it's like, hey, like you can still drone, you can still prowler, you can still dog, and I think you'll still find at least a quite a big deal of success still following those play patterns that you had before with those types of abilities.
And the fact that you guys have made this many changes to this many agents and balanced it all out back to 0, like we said, it's a clean slate at this point. Even if there is a situation where something is overpowered, you guys can tweak.
Yes.
And you have the time to do it. You've done it in a time of the year as well where people have time to adapt, try things, fix things, and then you guys can patch based off what you see as well. So I don't think it's like the end of the world to like reset. I think it's actually the best time to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, oh, go ahead, Tiffy.
I was gonna say, yeah, on the timing thing is like the way we also see it. To your point, it's like we want to make sure that when we start 2026 and we have like all the new content that comes in a year, that we have like a good foundation to work from. Where it's like, hey, if we did any of this during the middle of the year, it can be like extremely disruptive. It's like really hard for you to get an assessment of like where each meta is forming and like what you should invest your time in. So I do agree. It's like this is kind of the key time, and it's like definitely expect more to come out as we kind of like all go through this journey of like understanding like where abilities and weapons overall are standing at.
Yeah, for sure. Odin.
Also, we're getting hit up in chat saying this isn't live. I promise. If it's my sweat, I'm definitely. This sweat is live. It ain't recorded.
It's not pre-recorded.
Just don't even look at them. These guys are trolling. This is all they do. This is all they do. This is my chat. That's the problem. If it's like a regular chat, it's different.
But the Odin, you were saying?
Psychopaths.
Odin, yeah, good.
Yeah, let's talk about the main reason we're all here. Brock's Odin. What do we do about it? How can we fix this? Is there a fix?
I think it's nerfing Brock if we can find a way. If anything,
there is. I don't think there is a way.
Go ahead, Vardy. I think you had a good one.
Yeah. So I think for what it's worth, I think the Odin is, again, my opinion. Outside of like map design, is that I think the Odin is kind of doing what we intend it to do, right? Where it's like if you see these 5-man spray downs happening like as people are coming in, that's kind of how the gun is designed, right? It's more expensive than the Vandal and the Phantom, and it has it's a large machine gun. It kind of needs to have that type of texture in order for it to feel viable, right? We don't want our guns like Tiffy has mentioned a lot of times before. Like we want weapon variety to feel like it has a place in Valorant, right? Like we we like that, there's a kind of a standardization between Phantoms and Vandals, but we also like when players kind of like look to the arsenal in general and be like, hey, like what weapon can I use to help me in this situation? But that being said, I think, if anything, it could be more of like a maps thing where it's like, watching, champs and stuff like that. I remember there was a kill that Brock got on someone who was like sitting outside of the yard in A main, and he just spammed him right through the wall. It's like, okay, maybe that's a bit too much. Maybe we can do some changes to the maps and whatnot. But I think my personal take is that I think we should wait to see any map changes we have slated down the line to see if that affects the Odin. And personally, I think this map pool is just really good for the Odin, to be honest. Like it's like a lot of great, paper maps, so to speak.
I see what you're saying.
And so
I know exactly what you're saying. You want more Brocks. He wants a couple more Brocks before they can make this decision.
I mean, maybe, but I think we don't want to overswing, right? I think maps.
Yeah, sure.
I think starting with maps first is a good lever where we can kind of use that as like a starting ground and seeing where we can go from there. I think it'll be up to people like Tiffy and Koos to like make the calls. Like, hey, do we make it more expensive? Do we do something to the movement speed, bullet spread, all that jazz? But I think first we should like take a look at the maps first and see if there's anything we can improve there.
Yeah. I think the big issue for me was the Lotus barrier spams. It's like right off of barrier getting hit to 50 seems a little ridiculous, no matter which point of view you're looking at it from. So things like that I think are a little cheap. Outside of that, it's fair game, and like you said, you want variety, like gun variety. He's the only one that's been able to like break past the threshold of getting MVP with this specific gun. No one else has abused it to that degree at all, so you can't really make a change on the gun itself. It's probably just on the maps, like you said.
Yeah, and we'll continue to monitor. We have like a lot of levers, like we've talked about. Like, I think a lot of the players are even in chat, they're bringing up like, oh, like bullet count, like price, and things like that. That stuff we can look into, but I think right now we just kind of want to monitor. It's a lot to change too much at once, and like we're feeling that now. But as we see the patch settle, we have a couple like map pool switches and things, right? Like we want to see how it plays on the new map pool. We want to see how players use it with like the new utility timings and stuff. So I think it's going to take some time for us to just kind of like see how it sits and like see if in the map pool can Brock do it again.
Yeah. I mean, one thing we do love is the theory crafting, right? Like, I think that is like the excitement and like the idea of like, oh, if I use this gun in this context, like it's really, really good. Like, I think that is the type of mastery we actually want players to go in and kind of like find out for themselves. And I think like Diego's point of like, we want to do a maps pass first, probably, or like think about it first. It's like changing weapons we have historically seen can be like pretty painful. It depends on the lever, where it's like, oh, magazine count tends to be like less painful, or bullet count is less painful, but like a lot of the other things does mess with your muscle memory, does kind of like challenge the fundamental way like you handle the gun, and like going back and forth numbers, like while it may seem kind of like innocuous on paper, it's like it has like the most like impact on like your muscle memory. So we try to be very precious about this. Like we don't want to go there unless we're like very confident like that is like the final direction we want to go towards. So yeah, I would say overall it's like the weapons are something we are more interested in investing in coming into 2026. So that's something we definitely are like keeping a closer eye on.
Okay. What about this Yoru ults? Like getting rid of his flash and his clone in the ult. Like surely we just get rid of one and not both. Like let's just pick one now. Let's just do it now.
We choose the TP. Yeah, I think it was a tough one. Yeah. The one thing is like this change was a version we had of the Yoru ult in the past, but the environment of like when it existed was obviously pretty different. But we think the way players have mastered Yoru now, it's like a lot of people are getting good on Yoru. It's taken some time. I know a lot of pros are like, I knew this shit was broken, but we didn't have time to play it, kind of thing. So now that we're seeing it, we're seeing that like he's fine without them, like in pro, and like a lot of the executes we saw in champs, like I think we saw a couple that use the flash, but for the most part, you kind of stack a lot of the utility to help him, and then he comes out and then has utility when he's like able to use his gun. And so like we still think that's true. We think like you'll have to be more dependent, and like to be honest, like Yoru's been so self-sufficient, being able to flash himself in and do all these things, and like I mean, he's also invulnerable and invisible. I feel like that can be like one of the more frustrating parts of Yoru as well. Yeah. Not only that, there's a flash that comes out over here that like pops here, and like that's not really so there's a lot of that stuff that like we wanted to clean up to see if we can like make him more like a little more selfish. But which is like the flashes and things like that are part of the standardization. But the Yoru ult was the one where we think like if we want to remove this and see like, hey, does the duration need to go up? Like, does the speed need to go up? How can we push power if this shape now works in the new environment of abilities? So I'm definitely nerfing myself in ranked because I play Yoru a bit.
Speaking of that, though, a lot of people will say that you're thinking more about the pro play aspect of the game with this change, or with this patch, sorry, as opposed to like the casual players. Is there any truth to that? Do you feel like you lean one way or the other? Or do you just feel like this is just how it was supposed to always be?
I think so. The intention of this patch is like the timing of this patch is very much for like our core competitive players. Like we're looking for like the long-term stability of the game, and like I think there's something that we need to recognize is like there is some great inherently power creep amongst like any competitive game in general over time. This is like our way of like kind of doing something proactive against that, so that we, like, to my point, like set up for the next year. I think throughout the year, it's like much easier for us to kind of like sprinkle in small adjustments for like the entire player base, whether you are like more competitive or a little bit less competitive and like are here more for like your social stack. I think those are things we can do, but oftentimes like we recognize like to hit the core competitive player, we need to do everything all at once so that you kind of reconsider the entire package of Valorant and understand like what the goal of the game kind of like is and like how you want to actually strategize. So I think this is like just like the beginning, where I think there's, to your point, like a bunch of follow-up stuff that we still want to do for a lot of different types of players. But so I wouldn't even say it's like as far as like just pros. I think it's something we've noticed, like the more coordinated you get, like if your team is like calming, if you're playing in a duo or a trio even, like you start to see like this coordination and kind of like this like excitement around like set plays happen, like with lineups and perfect execs. And that's like the thing where we want to make sure that you're still just as intentional about setting those up now as you were like before.
Well said, well said. No, it's fun. It's fun. It's interesting to me because when I watch a lot of like, or I can tell someone's a casual just by the way they type, the things that they type, like the hard raging with zero thought, because I'm like, it's well, I don't know which one you mentioned it. You know, like only 13% of like these players are actually using their second or third E button.
I think we were looking at that. That was like an older number, but yeah.
It's the same idea.
Probably better.
Where it's like when we first started this, we did want to make sure like, hey, that we don't completely take away the tools that you have. Like we tested a lot of different versions of this. And so yeah, when the first game came out, it was like when we looked at the numbers, it's like a surprising stat of like sometimes majority of players would not get to use their signature. Like I'm talking like when Valorant first came out, like people just were taking dry gunfights because they're just getting used to the game itself. Over the last 5 years, we've overcome a good amount of that, but I will say we haven't even reached the point where it's like, oh, people are actively playing around like the second cooldown. I think it is a thought that they have, like, oh, I would like to, but oftentimes like often can like fail in execution. So that's like something that we definitely, when we chose the numbers, are like actively looking at and trying to make sure like, well, do they still have access to hopefully the same amount of things they did before, but we're just trying to incentivize them to be a little bit more like intentional about it.
Okay. These map changes, though, I'm not gonna lie, are pretty insane. I have to say it. They're literally as perfect as they could be. They're legit. Like I haven't seen one bad thing about them actually, which is I was happy about that. What inspired those changes? Like especially towards. Okay, let's start with Pearl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Please.
Okay, yeah. For Pearl, I mean, honestly, it just comes down to like watching the game and playing the game ourselves. Like, there's a lot of stuff that we've seen where, you know, granted, there are times, like I mentioned before, where you are checkmated in Val. Like, that's just the nature of the game. But I think the amount of times that it feels like you are already fighting an uphill battle, even when retaking the site, and even after clearing the site, there's more of an uphill battle where it feels like the pacing of the retake should end once you get to the site, if that makes sense.
Right.
I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of like understanding when and where fights will happen. And so for the Pearl changes, we really wanted to, again, focus people back onto the site. And like, you know, if there's a time where like, you know, for example, an IGL calls like, hey, we're going to do the B-long post plant, they're doing it because they have a set plan, not because it's like the easiest thing to do.
It's the only chance. It's the only choice.
Exactly.
You guys are adding options, which I love.
Exactly. And we're adding options on site as well, right? Where it's like before, you know, the site was a little barren and it kind of, you know, it kind of enforced that idea of like, okay, I guess we have to go long because the only other place we can go is back hall. Because if you go screens, you're kind of in a no man's land. If you get popped by a flash, you're kind of dead. So my only safe option is be long. And so we wanted to kind of like, you know, reconfigure some cover in a way that, you know, incentivizes that on-site play where it's like, oh, I actually feel comfortable now like hiding behind this box that I can't get spammed through, or hiding in this deeper cubby that is now the safe plan, for example. Or, you know, there's a new divot behind screen where it's like, I'm not fully tucked, but I'm tucked from a majority of the angles and I have a nice clean fight towards the street player. So yeah,
more util from the defense have to go towards those areas instead of just long all the time. Yeah,
exactly.
They can't just save it.
Yeah,
I agree. This is good. This change is just perfect. I don't know. The same thing goes with it's the exact same thing for Abyss B. It's like the only map that I constantly complain about because it's just retake central.
Yeah, I mean,
If I feel like you guys have addressed that, especially at B, which is the main bomb site where it's always retake.
Yeah, I mean, personally, like, again, me playing on the site as well, like as a scrub ascendant player, I'm just like, I feel like I have no options. Like I want to feel like I can anchor a site, and not only on defense, but also on attack, right? Where it's like, again, the way that the site is kind of set up, currently on live, it's like, well, I have this really safe plant towards you know, towards the ledge, for example. But other than that, it's like I can't really fight up. If I'm fighting up for space, it's a little bit more of a gamble. And so, you know, that's also part of the reason why we added that piece of like dice cover in the middle of the site, where it's like, hey, like both defenders and attackers can use this piece of like really nice checkpoint cover in the middle of the site. So it's like, I can actually feel comfortable fighting up and not feel like I'm just gonna get
And isolate the fights
flashed.
between Heaven and
in hell.
CT.
Yeah, Heaven in CT. Yeah.
Diego, can you
Yeah.
tell them a story about Only Spot or what is called Only Spot?
Yeah,
please?
so I think if you play the game, you definitely know what Only Spot is. I was talking to.
Wait, can you guess? Do you already know what Only Spot is?
Only spot?
Yeah, if I tell you there's Only Spot on B site, where would you think it is?
Backside B.
Yeah, under the bridge.
Yeah.
It's basically
the only spot you can play.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the only spot you can
So
play.
for a long time, we
call
would
it Only
joke about
Spot.
that spot being called
Oh,
Only
gotcha,
Spot,
yeah.
and so his job was to figure out, well,
How do you make it not an only
yeah,
spot?
like that's clearly a
Right.
problem.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anything, I think, I've seen some concern of like, oh, this just makes B site more complicated to hit, right? But I think it just now brings it up to the same level as something as like Ascent A or Ascent B.
Yeah.
Because before, I think it was just, you throw one Sova Dart, one Paranoia, and the site is yours, right? And like what you said,
Right.
it's like, I feel like I have to play retake or I die on the site.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think now you should feel a lot better of like, oh, I'm able to get mine maybe too, and like now the retake is a 3v5 or 3v4 or something
It's
like that.
it's the main reason why people went perma double controller on the map is because even for example Energy, they had to start creating their own bomb site with the Hyperwall.
Yeah, Sam was cutting that up. He
Yeah,
was
build
cutting
your
up
own
pretty
bomb
nice.
site.
Because that's the only thing they can do, because it's the only way you could create enough space to actually go back in without being
I
seen
think-
from like 40 angles.
That was the toughest part of doing the changes. I think we've already touched on this, but like we were also like changing utility in many ways, and like some of the changes were heavier than they are now,
Yeah.
And then we decided to like pull back on some of like the size changes and things like that to like where they used to be, like they were so tiny. But like on Abyss was a good example. Is like you trying to test new places to cast utility. Because it used to just be that one spot, right? Like if you put your concuss that way or paranoia, that's basically where you have to hit, or like the jump up or heaven, because you have the rest of it smoked. So like now you have like a lot of the different pieces that you guys might have seen in the video, like that you have to even if you do concuss that spot, they can be tucked in the backside or on that new cubby, or they can also reposition. So like one shot and then reposition and then reposition. So there's a lot more places to like play dynamically on the site instead of that one spot. So it's been a lot more fun for us to play, at least, and I'm excited for like that one probably the most.
It was funny. I was watching Nats this last event, and he was so sad, and all his trips were getting broken. His cages are just all over the place, and he still can't live. And I felt so bad for him because he was having the worst Abyss maps, and I'm like, okay, well, like now he's finally going to be happy to be able to play somewhere in the bomb site and actually anchor it.
Yeah.
So at least there's that. What else did I want to go over? Is there anything you guys haven't mentioned that you want to mention?
Nothing.
Anything chat can think of? Breeze. They want to know about Breeze.
Oh,
Oh, they're saying Breeze, yeah.
They're obsessed with this map.
Yeah.
they like it that much.
They love Breeze.
What just happened? You guys hated this map like 2 days ago.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, chat. Anyways, but can't say anything specific about Breeze,
Okay.
but we are taking a look at it. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
All right. They're taking a look at it. It's back, guys.
I think. Well, why don't we talk a little bit about like map updates in general? Like I know we had these two, but like, why are we updating maps now?
Yeah, I think going back like as to why we're updating maps, I think is more so like again like there's like a gameplay trifecta happening in Valorant where it's like agents, weapons, and maps, and for a while we've been we've been a little slow on the map updates, and I think that's an initiative we want to take a little bit more of like a feeling of like quickness on, where it's like, hey, like we want to be a little bit more rapid and a little bit more ready to change things if we feel that things aren't meeting the mark per se. That being said, though, like for new maps like Corrode, for example, we want to allow time for the meta to kind of settle or figure out, like, allow people time to figure out what is working and what is not working on the map. And so, we won't be updating Corrode right away, especially because the map's only been out for 4 months or something like that. And there's still plenty of time for people to figure the map out. But, I think just know we are watching the map. We're watching it in like ranked, in competitive, like in pro play, all that stuff. And we are, on the side, we're like thinking of things that we can do to like make the map better or, just improve some quality of life things.
W. So where's the NRG billboard going?
It's gonna be. We're actually gonna change the whole sky. It's just gonna be the energy logo, and then Som's face and Brock. It'll be everyone like in the sky. We'll just make their faces out of clouds.
This will be a big Odin. This guy.
People are actually asking a question. Wait, let me see this. What is it? GC on the new patch. Why no prep time?
That's a game changers one. I guess Tiffy, you and I can answer this one, but we don't. This is going to suck, but we don't really have a great answer because we're on kind of the dev side of things and the design and the actual like gameplay stuff. But yeah, we don't make the decisions ourselves, unfortunately. But yeah, we won't be able to answer too many of those questions, unfortunately. I know it sucks.
Yeah, the timing's
Sorry, guys.
definitely unfortunate, and I think like that's something that I know like the esports team is like trying to figure out, especially for like next year. Like with Ascension going away, I know there's a lot of discussion of like making sure that Game Changers potentially is pulled closer to champs. So like this isn't always the case, just because we do want to continue like making changes to the game around this time. But yeah, it's definitely something that's hard.
Ask about Harbor. Oh, actually.
Yeah. We could talk a little bit about
Yeah.
I got so happy. You were very excited there.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was, yeah, that took a while for us to get to. I think we had talked about this a little bit, but Harbor was one of the changes where like we kind of had to go a little back and forth. So when we finally landed on something that we thought was exciting, it was really cool. So for Harbor, he's going to be getting a rework, and it's coming out 2 patches after 1108. I don't want to go too deep on the Harbor stuff, but he's basically going to be a lot more aggressive than he is now. He has one new ability, and a lot of the abilities kind of just like shuffled in a way that like still feels like Harbor. I don't want to spoil too much because it's a really exciting. At least like it's been really fun to play Harbor again. So
would you say
I'll
it's
just
the
leave it
buff
at that.
technically?
Oh yeah.
Oh, it is.
Maybe I should have answered like that, but maybe I'm too excited. I think he's great.
I got it.
I think
It's the buff.
I think so.
he's a lot more viable now.
Yeah.
Not to say that he wasn't before, but I think you'll find with his new kit on maps, especially where like you probably wouldn't find him to be viable, that he is now pretty viable.
Okay, I'm gonna tell chat this one thing. I had one question for them that was completely my own, that has nothing to do with this patch, and I simply asked, why can't we get into the range while in queue? And apparently it's really hard to do. Like apparently it's actually really hard to do. So we can't do it. That's the answer. They just can't do it right now.
Not to say we'll never do it, but we're
No,
always
but
listening.
not right
We're
now.
always
We're
listening.
figuring
Right
it
now,
out
so
amongst
we'll see.
everything.
Yeah, I think as you know, on the design side we're doing this, on the tech side we're doing this, like especially like pushing replays out. Like we're just trying to stabilize the game. Like we want this game to last like more and more years. So like we just have to stabilize and just like, you know, upgrade a lot of our tech and just kind of like make sure the game's functioning from both gameplay and tech side. So once we get to that and prioritize it, that sounds sick. I don't use the range too much, but maybe I will.
But I mean, just know, you know, a lot of us play the game, even though some people like the meme that do the devs play their own game. We definitely do. Trust me.
Oh yeah.
We definitely do. I'm a little bit of a rank gremlin. So just know that if you feel a certain way, there's probably a good chance we feel a certain way about some things as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, stop hating, guys.
Yep. I dutifully clock my
always
4
be
losses
hating.
per day, so you should actually thank me. I'm out there.
They'll always be hating. They're just like you. No,
Yeah.
I think these changes are good, and I also think the reset just will overall help so many people figure out what is good and what is bad over the next couple of months, and then for you guys to be able to just listen to that feedback and even play yourselves like you do and figure out where you need to go with a lot of these agents going forward instead of like over nerfing or over buffing.
Yeah, one of the anecdotes kind of used was like, you know, like Tejo was a good like pressure crack pusher. Like he was like stepping on the cracks, right? We had a lot of changes that we already wanted to do, but you know, like seeing how like releasing a new agent could be so meta warping in many ways made it kind of hard to gauge some of the like how do we release an agent that isn't too overpowered. And you know, like I mean, just to be frank, like I think we've been power creeping the game a bit, finding ways to make abilities compete with other abilities that players like are frankly getting better at and have mastered. How do we make an ability that like they are going to try brand new and feel like it's value? It's tough, right? And so
So why didn't
Yeah,
you
go.
guys continue to tweak instead of reset? I'm actually like I'm sorry if I missed that answer.
Oh
No, you're
yeah.
good. On the patch or on Teo?
No, in general, like after the
Okay.
Teo update, you guys you tweaked Teo back to how he should be and where he should be, and I think he's at a good level now. But I'm saying this patch here, you guys have fully clean slated. Why didn't you continue to just do the same process you guys have been doing? What changed?
I can maybe answer a little bit first. I think it's like one of the things over the last couple of years we've recognized is like going purely like laissez-faire and like waiting for players is a long time to wait. Like we have to wait for a lot of like trickle down from content creators, pro scene, like or some like something to kind of explode for I think more people to catch on. Like that's just how we realize that how interconnected.
Tens.
how connected the Valorant community is. And I think like the other thing is we've realized is like switching cost is really, really high for a game that is so deep in mastery. So what I mean by that is like when someone has invested like hundreds of hours, like we don't want to fully like just tell them like, hey, forget that. We're gonna nerf your character like a lot, or just for the sake of pure diversity. So I think it's like when we take an approach of like, here's a balance pass across all of our agents, and like here's the end thing of like, here's what you can expect out of them. The assumption is that it'll make you think a little bit more about like not just me, myself, and I on the agent that I play, but like, hey, across the roster, like if I'm trying to like do like I don't know, if I'm trying to like figure out who's the best info gathering sentinel, like who should I actually play to fill that role rather than just defaulting to like the known good now. And the hope is that like, hey, this kind of like reopens that theory crafting to set us up for next year and probably tee up some hopefully really cool things. So I think that's like why we've generally approached it, as well as like, yes, power creep is like oftentimes like a bunch of small invisible things stacked up on top of each other. And it's like really hard to just, you kind of need to unravel all together rather than just like go line by line. Because I think what we've also learned, which is a painful lesson for me personally, is like small nudges, especially small nerfs, is very painful for A, players, and B, oftentimes don't get you the result until you're at an over nerf state. And so I think like that actually is like long term even more like damaging to like I think like how players decide what they want to invest in and like how open minded they are to trying something else. So I think that's why we've gone for like this approach, especially with like this timing.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, so this one thing I had an issue with was the Vise Flash, right? The Vise Flash not being able to get info because it was such a useful ability in general, especially at a higher level, like higher level play. Like most pros that are Vise players will use it for info consistently. I could argue Killjoy Turret and Cypher Cam are Vise's Flash. In terms of the info it gets, you can get the same amount of info to all three, but you guys nerf the Vise Flash. Is there a specific reason for that?
I can go into that one. I like if you looked over here.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so for Vice, I think, this was kind of like the how do we make Vice competitive with all the other agents as we're releasing an agent. There's a lot of like the info that feels like it's pretty good there. But we kind of wanted to take a look at Vice to see where the information was actually necessary for her loop. So what does that mean? I just said a bunch of like words there. Basically, like where do we want her to be strong, or what is her type of sentinel, and then how do we make that her strength, right? Get her like isolate a duelist, put them in a nest of like brambles that damage you to hell, and then like fight them. But it's not about like fishing for information. It's about getting them to come into your site and isolating people, right? So can we push power into that instead of like making it more broad to matching what Cypher and Killjoy can do, or what like different agents can do there?
Okay. And
until
I
we
guess
took that off, it was really tough.
Sky to be played more. It probably helps Sky be played more now too.
I think the Yori nerfs are probably going to help Sky there, to be honest. Yori kind of like
also
pushed out some of it. Yeah. But yeah, I think like one of the things that you and I talked about before this was like, as we take off double outputs on Vice, like the Flash and the Recon, if we take the Recon off, how far can we push the Flash to actually be pretty strong? Right now it had to be like generally okay, and because it had Recon, can we push that and then push Recon into other parts of her kit, like more into the brambles like we did, or something like that. So for us to like, it's kind of a pattern that you'll notice on the patch here, is this first one is really going to be kind of like making everyone a little bit tighter on the roster so that we can start to like pull people towards how strong they need to be. And like, actually, to be honest, start pushing power into agents the right way.
Essentially you're saying you want her to be able to anchor her own site and trap the 1 or 2 players that run in. But my point is, when her flash hits and there's a guy in, that's when you peak. but now you don't know that. So if you peek and there's nothing there, you've also given up sound cues, and
Yep.
I think that's a pretty big nerf on top of her ults taking 400 years to hit now.
Yeah. I think Vice will probably, fast. We have like a lot of things to look in on Vice. I think like
Poor Vise.
poor Vice for sure. There's a lot of changes that we think are going to be directionally good, but they'll take
the
a
other one
couple
I was
tries to
confused
get to the
about-
numbers.
And the other one I was confused about was the Gecko Wingman, because bro isn't even played. Like, why?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, most of that was because we wanted to, as we're doing the standardization on the initiators, we wanted to kind of like push a bit more of that risk. He does have a lot of like safer dizzies that still give him that timing, and like half of the it's like a third of the duration, right? So
yeah.
him being like pretty strong and being like the main pick was like kind of a fear. But yeah, I mean, again, like I said, if we overswung on that number, I feel confident there's a number in between 10 and 20 that we can land on.
For sure. Nah, either way, I still like this. Okay, so my favorite changes were the initiator changes, so I'm going to talk more about that. Honestly, they were. Like, I've been begging for this for so long because I feel like people were just using these darts willy-nilly and had it for every piece of map control. Like, okay, I want to take long A, I have a dart. I want to take sight, I have a dart. If I have post plan, I have a dart. I feel like people don't have to pick and choose, and I feel like that lowers the skill gap. So was the point of that to increase the skill gap of the game and of the players, I guess?
I think it's more of like the timing and how you're using the abilities. We're talking about like the initiator utility, right?
Yes. Yeah. The rechargeables.
So yeah, I think like in most levels of play, and a lot of people in chat are kind of talking about like the ranked experience. I think the ranked experience is going to be somewhat the same, but like really push you to kind of like have that gun skill and like almost like depend a bit more on the gun skill. I think initially we did see like with some of the cooldowns coming down, we saw like some of our games getting kind of tricked. Like Vardy's just like clowning on us because he's like better at shooting. And so like you will see a lot of the players that are good at shooting come up a little bit, right? So it will increase the skill gap in some ways, but I think it's one of the things where like as it flattens out, you'll see people get better at using their utility, and like the skill gap that might have been pretty massive is like kind of like shrinking down in the same ways that like it has been a couple years, like for a couple years now, right? So
yeah. And then the other thing I liked, if I'm being honest, was the ults changes, like making them smaller, just so they're not completely overwhelming bomb sites in general, similar to like some of the other abilities, but more so the ults. Like the ult radiuses being smaller is just, the AoE is just better.
Yeah, that's the thing, like that kind of feeds into your question, is like we want coordinated and like proactive players to be rewarded in the same way that they kind of are now with those ultimates.
Yeah.
But the extra edge that you get, like like if you're hitting your ult on one site, like you don't need to do the whole site. If you're intentional and you already know which way you're going to be casting it, like that's kind of the skill gap difference we're going to see, is like, are people getting the right reads and are they hitting the right spot to follow up on, versus like kind of giving a little bit of extra edge just in case they might be there. Yeah. And I thought wrong, So
I think that I figured out a way to explain this. Oh my god! Thank God. Okay, so the thing I love about this patch is that people can't just have full util for map control and then have that same util for the exec. Pick one or the other, or find a way to balance out both. That I think that's why I wanted this kind of a patch. People really want me to ask about Cypher.
All right,
they're
sounds good,
actually, and they're very angry as well. So just
what about Cypher? Just everything.
Just like why did you do what you did to him?
I could. Oh, look, so you have some subs. Did you want to talk about your subs?
Thank you for the subs.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, Cypher's a tough one. I think like Cypher in the shape that he has kind of like caused a bit of the like toughness to build new Sentinel agents, because he does kind of a lot. Both his kill trips, like having like really effective kill trips, the one-way trips, having like the flexibility of having like his cage and just having information globally. There's a lot that he does that I think is correct. I think there's some stuff where I think the kill trip specifically, where it kind of like leads to some gameplay that's both ununderstandable from the counterplay side. Like we use this a lot, but like that kill trip on Bind where it's like I baby pebble and it goes to like the shed
talking about
knob or something on bind.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So then that one's like, it's usually kind of like smoked in the area. There's like a cage there. And then you kind of trip it, like not even seeing it because it was like so close.
But don't you also think that's a way of like you learn from it by adapting to it? You saw it, next time you'll adapt to it. So why is it a big deal?
I think it depends on like what the counterplay is there. I think like sometimes you can't hear that because of like it's in the places where there's a lot of combat. So what we wanted to do was make the like call and response a little bit easier, where it's like, okay, I specifically didn't shoot this trap, so it's going to reveal me and it's going to be punishing. But being able to like understand like, oh, like it clicked on me and then I didn't shoot it and then now I'm going to get revealed. Like that's the kind of gameplay that I think like a lot of our initiator utility does too, is like you hear this thing coming, it winds up, it explodes. You understand more easily like why you were punished for it. So we kind of want to push more into that understandable counterplay so you know what to do the next round. And then we can push power into it. Like right now it's like 0.9 seconds wind up. Like,
yeah,
do we want the thing to be shorter? 1.5, maybe not. Like that's pretty fast. But like, you know, we can actually start to push power into this thing if we think the counterplay is like easy to understand. When people are getting hit, they're like, man, I just messed up. I know what to do there.
People are getting so mad. They're so upset about the site.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we are like really aware of is like some of the stall capabilities, some of the agents that are still like ranked solo queue powerhouses like Clove, Reyna. Like those are probably our two candidates that we know we are very actively going to be watching how this plays like live day one on the patch, and we already are actively discussing about it. So it's definitely tough. I recognize that as someone who used to be a fellow Cypher player and then has just went to Vice. So I definitely sympathize with that.
But yeah, I guess real quick.
There's some other stuff.
I was gonna say real quick, going back to Kuz's point, where it's like I think this just in general gives us a good baseline to start from, where we can, like how Kuz mentioned again, we can now very confidently say like, oh hey, we can push power because of these reasons. I think
for sure
this just gives us a great, ground zero, like you mentioned before, where it's like, okay, who's falling below the mark, who's overperforming, and we can
it's a mark that you guys have set. So now you guys will be able to judge a lot easier than you would have previously. I get it. That makes sense.
And,
I mean,
and like
that Cypher will be back. Don't worry, guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of those cameras too. I think Cypher was kind of on the tech side with one of our older agents.
Yep.
So there's a couple things that we just had to like update on the tech side, stealth being one of them.
Yeah.
There was a couple of the things that we thought were like just kind of out of date from a counterplay perspective. More specifically, like the Ascent A on the generator. You put the camera, they don't know it's there ever, right. And then all of a sudden, like you spammed, right?
Yes.
So there's so that one you weren't able to hear before. So you still be rewarded for having like some of the higher cameras and like just like really tricky cameras like up and about, because like it still has a stealth range, which isn't super big. It's just some of the ones where it's like, okay, there's obviously a camera.
Most people have other things to worry about anyway. They're not just looking for a camera the whole time.
Right. Yeah. So then from there, like from ground zero, we can just like start to push the power if we want there. Like, should it unstealth? Like when it unstealths, does it like stealth faster? Yeah. Does the dart shoot you faster? Like things like that. So yeah, it lets us really gauge like where we want to push power based on like both player feedback and kind of how the game's been playing. So right, so we hear you on the Cypher stuff, but hopefully we can start pushing some power back.
Chat's saying they're going to give you 2 months to change it back.
All right.
Well,
2 months is good.
Yeah.
And then the KO flash, it's perfect. Finally the underhand is useful again. Like it's actually such a useful tool for KOs to be able to go in with their ults and not have to use a flash over places. Instead they could just go through a smoke. It's huge. Nerf Neon. Really, guys?
Neon
has changes.
Sky rechargeable. Oh, that's actually a good one.
Yeah,
recharge Sky Flash.
That's a good one. Yeah,
do we just do it?
I mean, so I think those are the kind of conversations we're having now. I think like she's a good candidate for having back her cooldown now because it's 60 seconds, right? I think like before it was like with the 40 seconds you just stand it out bind long always. Are they there or not, right? And so like in pro play that doesn't matter as much because it's like they're defaulting anyways, whatever. But in ranked games, or at least my ranked games, and some people might say I'm a noob and I don't play, but in my games it's like that's probably where they're just going to hit, right? Like if you if you hit bind, I'd be like, that's probably where they're going to hit. So you can like at least rotate one over. So that's the kind of gameplay that we thought was like really.
I mean, flash was still the flashes were still fine, to be honest. Most decent players are just saving their flash till mid round and then flashing long.
Yeah, so that's the stuff where I'm like, I could see us bringing back the recharge, to be honest. For Tejo though, I think someone said in chat, Sky and Tejo ? The Tejo one, I think I'm less interested in doing a recharge. I like the Brimstone model. I like the you use what you use, you gas out. And so I think that one we've conversated and tried a couple times, but I like that he really has to call a shot. And if you force him to gas out, he can't do it again, and he has to use his gun. That's cool on Tejo personally, because he has a lot of other tools to help take sight. Versus Sky, who has the wolf and only the flashes. So yeah.
Are you guys optimistic about the state of the game 4 months down the line? Do you guys feel like it's going to be at a good point? I feel like you feel like most people are going to favor this change. I know it's hard to say right now, but just based off, because you guys have tested it a bunch, so just based off what you've tested.
Yeah. On the design side, we feel confident that we have the levers to change the game properly now. And so I'm optimistic in this patch, mainly not to say that this is the final patch, we're not changing shit. We have a couple more patches to be able to change it, and we have a whole year to adjust. We just know now that we're optimistic that we can change the game in the right way and put power back into agents that in ways that make them they need to be strong in, and then their identities and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I think even on the weapon side and the map side, I feel pretty good about these changes too.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had a question about the guns. So is there a reason you guys stuck to the spray pattern being random at any point instead of having a pattern that people can memorize, kind of master?
Who wants to take this one?
I think, granted, I'm not the weapons designer, but I know the overall philosophy is that we want to encourage different types of shooting patterns, whether that be burst, tap, or full-on sprays. I think the reason we did the changes that we did for spraying in general, like protected bullets and the horizontal shifting of the spray itself, is so that we've seen that tapping and bursting seem to be the only good options for players, where we think there could be room for spraying in general, just a bit more. Not to say that we want it to be a spray down every time. Where again, if all the guns were good at spraying, why would you pick the Aiden? Why would you pick any other gun? And so we want to just nudge it a little bit. And I think just in general, I think that is partially the reason why we don't have a set spray pattern. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't have a set spray pattern so that you feel inclined to just opt into those different types of either tapping or bursting.
I'm just a tapper or burster as well. I agree.
Yeah, personally, even in as someone who says these changes myself, it's I've very passively noticed that I'm able to get transfers a bit better. Granted, I'm not going to be I'm not going to be going from one side of my screen to the other with a perfect transfer. It's possible, I think it's still possible.
I could do it, but I can do it.
There you go. But it's
it's still hard for sure.
It is.
It's hard, but I think you'll find a bit more success in terms of I feel like I can actually hold my ground, whether on attack or defense. And I feel there's a reason why I want to spray now instead of tapping or bursting.
I think overall,
and you guys are gonna be working on. Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh sorry, I'll make this quick. I think overall, Valorant really wants the in the moment decision making to always feel very rewarding. So it's you should always be planning. And so it's I think if we ever went the route of there's set spray patterns all the time, it's we think that takes away do you adapt in that moment? Is this still the right thing to do? And we don't want that ever to be the case. Yeah.
Okay. I think the spray pattern. The reason I brought it up is because a lot of times you're shooting through smokes, right?
Yeah.
And you want it to be where you want it to be. You want it to move around in a specific spam spot. So if you have a spray pattern down to a T and you've practiced that, you get rewarded for it. And you guys were talking about skill gap increasing, so that's why I was wondering why you guys didn't add that. But I see what you're saying. Ask about rank rewards. I think I had, and they didn't. They just. I don't know.
Yeah, unfortunately, we work on maps, agents, live.
They're not the team for that, guys.
But
you will hear more about it in 2026. There's going to be more information on rank rewards.
There you go. Anything else? Anything else? Ask about Clove in every single ranked game.
So yeah, that was kind of the thing we were getting at earlier. Is like, this is, to Ryan's point, this is not our final patch. This is just the beginning. We recognize that there's like some solo queue agents like Clove, Reyna. There's going to be other agents that got hit a little bit harder by this patch that we are actively looking to adjust. So those are things we are very aware of and are working on. So
essentially what they're saying is they also play the game, guys, and just have some patience.
Yeah, Clove is one that we're actively like looking to make changes to. It's just hard to make changes, you know, to Clove, but yeah, I think we got something.
Okay. I don't have any more questions. Oh, biggest regret.
Oh shit! Whoa,
Biggest regret.
I think we're out of time.
In your biggest regret that you have had in like, let's say the last 2 years.
That's a lot.
The last 2 years.
In terms of a patch.
Yeah, I mean, again, for maps, I think it's, you know, probably being too quick on the Breeze stuff. Like, I think we should have maybe gone a little bit longer in terms of like not changing anything. But I think in the moment we felt that we were still correct for bringing back the halls, and I think that's more of like a learning opportunity for us, where it's like, hey, like, I think even at the time, if I remember correctly, that type of map change on Breeze was like the first time we've ever done something like that, like a huge change. Like at the time we changed Cave, we changed Hall, we changed a little bit of B, and so there's a lot of stuff going on where, granted, I think that was a good learning experience for us that now we're taking into the future.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say maybe mine's not a single patch, but multiple patches. It's like when we look too hard at the numbers or too hard at sentiment, sometimes like those two things start to diverge. And so it's like we end up in this really cursed state of like, you're doing repeated nerfs on an agent that everyone thinks is already like down bad. And then it just turns into like a whole nightmare. I think like those are tactically where I'm like, oh, it just kind of misses. Like we should have went harder the first time. So I think those are the things that I like regret the most or learned the most from probably.
Any specific examples?
Like, I think Viper is like one example where it's like we had to buffer a lot from when Valorant first came out to get people to play her. Then now we have to we've nerfed her quite a bit. There's probably some middle ground we're trying to get to, but I feel like people are very just like, it's like very hard to like want to pick her up right now, and we recognize that too.
Yeah.
Good answers, guys.
Go ahead. No, go.
The best for the last.
No, it's so funny because I think chat answered mine for me.
Chat, can anyone guess?
And so, hey, can anybody guess what mine was?
It's pretty obvious. It's got to be pretty obvious.
Yeah, so I do want to talk about kind of like it was a bit of regret in that we didn't kind of trust our gut. I think there was so this is kind of like a fun fact, but the current version of Tejo and where he is now is where he was intended to ship a couple months before. I think as we started to kind of like optimize around Tejo, we found some issues around like staging compared to some of our initiators. So, you know, we made a change so that he had his cooldown and he could cast 2 every time. So it was a bit of a deliverance from like our intention of him being that like call your shot initiator that didn't really have broad angle utility, but really flushed you out. So I think I'm still confident in Tejo's shape. The like, I get to call my spot, and then I get to kind of like place these 2 like points of pressure. And if I'm wrong, I gas out. I think that's the.
I think the recovery for Tejo, so the initial shape, the initial way he was supposed to go out was ideal. That's perfect.
Yeah,
and I know Trent loved old Tejo.
Yeah, and that's kind of the regret that I have is like, you know, we first didn't trust our gut, but also we pushed him into a place where the shapes were so different that we couldn't actually balance him downwards in a way that like made sense. So we brought him back to the shape that we were confident in, at least to make changes in the future, like whether we make him powerful or like slightly more powerful. I think he's going to be personally pretty good in this new era. So he's going to be a little bit better than he is now. But if not, then we have like a good baseline for him. So I think when we shipped him, he wasn't like at the baseline we were able to like kind of put up and down, but now he's pretty good.
Speaking of like overpowered agents, okay, so I remember bringing this up before to you, but Chamber, right? Because Tejo, I feel like you guys were pretty fast to patch it, like it was like that for me.
Yeah.
But Chamber, and thank you, by the way. I mean, but Chamber was there for a long time.
Yeah.
What kept him there at that level? Because every single team had a Chamber at that point.
That is probably one of the learnings. That was like the other thing that we started to realize. It's like divergence, where it's like previously we were a little bit more like, I think, hands off, where it's like, oh, but there's ways to play around him. Like we're just waiting for players to catch on. We also had like some idea where it's like, oh, we think it. With some of the lighter nerfs, we can get to a manageable state. Unfortunately, like those nerfs were not enough, right? Until we went the full mile. So that's kind of why it took us a little bit longer. I also think that's like why the balance team is like much more involved like now in this year than we were in the past, because we recognize like, yeah, probably a little bit too slow.
I guess my hot take actually is that during that time when Chamber was released, at least in the rank perspective, I think it really taught people to actually clear angles with utility. Because I remember at the time, Valorant was maybe like 2 years old at the time, or maybe 3 years old. I actually know, 2 years old at the time. And so it was like, people were still learning how to use utility correctly. And I think Chamber did something pretty good to the game in terms of like, hey, like you need to respect space. You need to respect neutral space. Sure. You need to use your utility in ways to take space from defenders or attackers.
He was the first TP merchant for sure.
Yeah, he was the first TP merchant, the best TP merchant in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I think he did something good in terms of teaching players like the whole loop of like clear space, take space, clear space again. Yeah. Granted, the numbers are a bit strong, but I think, we learned from that.
Yeah. Any new guns?
We got to cut now.
Nothing, man.
Maybe next time when we talk to you again, we can talk about other stuff.
Okay, fine. Done. They're done. They're done with me, guys. They're done. I think we've reached our hour mark.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's fun, it. Is there anything you guys want to say?
Yeah. Thanks for this pre-recorded experience.
Of course. Thank you.
I'm just kidding. So it's not pre-recorded. I'm trolling.
Not pre-recorded. No.
Please don't.
Not the second part, but the first part.
Yeah.
No, it was really nice to be able to talk about these changes, and I think we're gonna, there's a couple pieces. Is like one, we see the changes on paper, and we're able to talk about this stuff, but it's really hard to represent the actual feeling of playing it, and so we do, I want you guys to just like please give it a go. Let us know like if we're checking again in like a week, and be like, hey, we can't take sites, like things are crazy, or if there's actually a lot of friction. We are listening, and we'll be able to like start to gauge how we want to make those changes. And so, the other one is like, we're really thankful that we have the ability to make these changes, and we're committed to the next few patches to at least make some changes. This isn't the final patch, right? These aren't the final numbers. Some of them might be, but it'll take us some time to really see how the play evolves to like be able to like tweak changes. And some of the changes might come soon. Some of them might come a couple months down the road. So just like, bear with us, and we're really grateful for you guys to just, give us a chance in giving these changes a test.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Thank you, by the way. You guys are doing an incredible job, truly. Taya was patched immediately, as I said, so we've learned. Maps are incredible. I think this is by far the best change that this game has ever received, and I could already say that with like full confidence. I will stop playing this game if this patch isn't good. That's that simple. That's how I know for a fact it's good.
Yeah.
So
and the biggest. Oh yeah, sorry.
I was just gonna say it's literally easily my favorite patch for so many different reasons, but the fact that it's just a full reset for the game, full reset for you guys to be able to gauge what you need to buff, what you need to nerf going forward, I think it's going to help both parties. So hopefully we can continue to help you guys. And thank you, as always.
Yeah, and this patch was like the biggest collaboration. Like me, Tiffy, Diego, and Dan, we were like a small part of the team that did this. This was probably the biggest like collaboration and like our biggest effort getting a bunch of people to like in a room to talk about this stuff seriously. It's the only way we got it to happen, right? And so I did want to like kind of shout out the team, like our gameplay analysis team and the other designers that were working on this patch, because it was a tough one, and it's a tough one to talk about. It's a tough one without like playing it. So yeah, I want to say thanks to the team as well.
Yep.
W devs in the chat for sure.
Well, keep the feedback coming. We are definitely listening.
Oh, they will. Whether you want it or not, they will.
Keep the clips coming. Keep it all coming.
No, I'm just glad you guys told them that you guys actually play the game. I feel like these guys don't think you guys play.
If you see me in your ranked games, feel free to call me out. I'm in
Ask
there.
for a gun buddy.
NA West, send in if you're in there.
It's crazy.
Just holler at me. Tell me that I'm playing bad if I am. I don't care.
Ask about skirmish queues. Okay, this is the last question. I don't. They want to know so badly. Skirmish queues. Are we gonna have them?
If y'all love skirmish enough, I think we're definitely open to it. So
just keep telling us if you like skirmish.
Yeah.
If you like skirmish, you love it, you want to see more of it.
Saying W, yes, skirmish. God, please.
just keep letting us know, and we'll always listen to you guys. So.
All right. Well, that's that, guys. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you
for
so
being
much.
Here. I appreciate all of
Thanks
you.
for doing this, man.
Yeah, it was great.
Of course, it was a pleasure. Truly, it was. I've never done this before, so thank you. Hopefully, I did a decent job. You
Best
guys did an
host,
incredible
best host
job.
NA, best IGL, best host.
Thanks. Yeah, that's it. We're done.
All right.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, everybody.